Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to Jay vs. Horror. I'm your host, Jay Wall, and today, guys, we're going to be looking at 5 more awesomely underrated horror films that you can watch for free. If you have access to Tubi TV or Vudu, those are the apps that we're going to be using today to find our free movies. So if you have access to Tubi or Vudu, you can watch their free movies. You'll be able to watch these films. If you don't have access to that, then these movies are still great recommendations that maybe you could check out somewhere else. So guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. At number 5, I have Bitter Feast. It's an American psychological horror film directed and written by Joe Maggio, and it stars James LaGrosse as a chef pushed over the edge by a food critic played by Joshua Leonard from the Blair Witch Project. The film also features legendary horror producer, writer, director, and actor Larry Fessenden and celebrity chef Mario Batali. Our story here follows Peter Gray, who is a successful New York chef, disgruntled by caustic reviews from the food critic J.T. Franks, played by Joshua Leonard. After Franks leaves a tremendously bad review of Gray, Gray is fired by his boss. He then kidnaps Franks, takes him to a cabin in the woods, and forces him to cook his own perfect dinner. Now, this film sounds a lot cheesier than it is, guys. It came out in 2010, and this is right around the celebrity chef boom. So it is a little bit satirical of that era and what was going on with the, celebrity chefs and the cooking competition shows and all that. And you kind of get the feeling here that when they put this film together, somebody was sitting there thinking, what would Gordon Ramsay do to torture someone? Because that's kind of how this plays out. This chef kidnaps this food critic who's written a really bad review of his cooking and takes him out to the woods and decides he's going to, play some games with him, torture him a little bit. But there's a little bit more backstory to it as we go along. We find out more about this crazy chef and, how he grew up, what his backstory is, what made him like this. And the film becomes very interesting. Also, the food critic played by Joshua Leonard is just a narcissistic asshole. And for a long time, you feel like he's kind of getting what he deserves until he comes to some realizations of his own. And then you start to feel sorry for him. So there's nothing overwhelming in this film. The gore is not, too heavy-handed. The story's not much of anything we haven't seen before, but it is put into a new lens. And I enjoy this film a lot. It's free on Vudu right now, so let's check out the trailer for 2010's Bitter Feast.
Roscoe, New York, which our local anglers like to refer to as Trout Town, USA. Now to our frittata. We're going to let this go for another minute.
As for the food, one word, vomitous. Vomitous? Another scathing review, how nice.
Public demands raw meat. I just give it to them.
What the hell is going on? Where is everybody?
Feast, reviewed by J.T. Franks.
Gordon, he's a food blogger.
You just don't get it. This is a disaster.
So what now?
The sous chef from Marlowe & Sons is going to be in this afternoon. He's taking over the kitchen.
I'm fired?
Gordon, this is my life. Good morning, Mr. Franks.
Mr. Gray!
Do you know him? J.T. Franks. Hey, he wrote a nasty review of your restaurant.
Am I a person of interest, Mr. Coley? I'm not sure if we're in the middle of nowhere, but I feel we're quite close to it. Dig in.
At number 4 this week, Toad Road. It's a 2012 American independent horror thriller film directed and written by Jason Banker, Toad Road stars Sarah Ann Jones, who died of a drug overdose shortly after the film's premiere, which is sad because in the film she's playing a young college student that is introduced to drugs and becomes obsessed with an urban legend about a road leading to hell. The film premiered at the Fantasia Film Festival and had a limited theatrical release in October 2013. Now, the plot of this movie is pretty strange. We have a couple friends here who are at various parties hanging out, and eventually they start talking about this urban legend called Toad Road. And as the drugs go on and the conversations go on, they eventually end up taking acid and trying to walk down this path known as Toad Road, where they become separated, and one of them becomes lost or missing. They're not able to find this person, right? And it's a very strange film. It's the epitome of low budget, slow burn. I mean, really, they did not have a budget for effects. They did not have a budget for great sets or anything like that. But sometimes in these small little films, what happens is the story is so great that it shows through anyway. You know, I'm reminded of something I heard Morgan Freeman say one time. He was talking about a movie he did called Bonfire of the Vanities, and it had a huge cast: Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, Melanie Griffith, Morgan Freeman. It was based on a best-selling novel, great director, and what happened was the film was an utter failure. Most people have never even heard of it. It was a failure on a massive level, and Morgan said that that was the moment he realized that you could have all the best actors, you could have the biggest budget in the world, the best director, everything you needed to make a great film, and if the story wasn't great, if the screenplay wasn't great, the movie wouldn't work. And so it's also the reverse. Sometimes you don't have the big actors or the big effects or any of that, and you just have a really great story and it works. I think Toad Road kind of fits into that space where it's a really good story. I enjoy watching the film, and just because it doesn't have great effects or maybe the best setting, or it's shot digitally instead of on film or something like that, that's not a reason to not enjoy a film, right? So some people enjoy slow burns. If you're one of those people, I think you'll like this one. Toad Road is free on Tubi TV, and guys, let's take a look at the trailer.
He seriously wants to get knocked out.
I'm not fucking kidding. As hard as you can.
Are you recording?
Right here.
Alright, this is James getting knocked out.
My life is falling apart around me. I'm losing everything. I wake up every day and I feel like shit. It just doesn't seem worth it anymore. Why me? Toad Road. It's like the local high school urban legend.
I just kind of wanted to drop some acid and just see what happened.
At number 3, Dismissed. It's a 2017 horror thriller film directed by Benjamin Arfman, written by Brian McCauley, and it stars Kent Osborne, Dylan Sprouse, Ray Gray, and we have an appearance here from Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat and WandaVision. Now, in a way, guys, this is similar to the other film we talked about at the beginning, Bitter Feast, because it's basically about two people whose stations in life put them at odds with each other, and it just so happens that one of them is a psychopath. Here we have an idealistic, straight-edge teacher who is drawn down a horrid rabbit hole by an honor student when he gives him a B+ on a paper. Now, at first it seems like that's a minor thing, but as we find out more about these characters, we understand how major of an issue this is. This kid is super smart. I mean, he's at a genius level, but he has a history of stalking and attacking people who have slighted him in even the smallest way. So to be honest, it's more of a psycho thriller than a straight up horror film, but it creates insanely great moments of tension, and it'll definitely keep you watching for 90 minutes. Guys, let's take a look at the trailer for Dismissed, which is free right now on Vudu.
Why did Iago ruin Othello? Anyone? Hey, these kids don't even want teachers when they have Google.
Google can't teach a lesson, not the important ones.
Morning, Mr. Butler.
Oh.
I'm a new transfer student.
Yeah, sure. Welcome to the class.
My name is Lucas Ward. I just recently moved here from San Francisco, and English happens to be my favorite subject. I know I want to go to Harvard, because there's no use in doing anything unless you can be the very best at it.
Whoa. This isn't a paper, Lucas. This is a dissertation. Oh my gosh.
He's
He's a really bright kid. I think he could use a mentor.
B+?
Yeah, it's good work.
Where did you get your degree?
I'm sorry?
Where did you go to college?
Has Lucas ever been in trouble before?
Why?
Alkali metals are highly reactive.
I believe he's not the good kid he pretends to be.
Do you have any proof that my son has done anything wrong?
Lucas, it's over.
No, it's not over.
Lucas is trying to ruin me. You know exactly what he is, and you did nothing.
What a perfect family you have. Checkmate. I always find a book that much more compelling when the character stands to lose everything.
At number 2, Antisocial. It's a 2013 Canadian horror film and the feature film directorial debut of Cody Callahan. The film had its world premiere on July 31st, 2013 at the Fantasia Film Festival, and a sequel entitled Antisocial II was released in 2015. The sequel, not so great, but this one's pretty good, guys. Both films predominantly center on Sam, a young woman that finds herself in the middle of a pandemic where disease sufferers suddenly begin to show strange symptoms and violent behavior. It's actually an adaptation of a Turkish horror film called Dabe. And what's most interesting about Antisocial to me is it's nothing we haven't seen before. It's very similar to films like The Crazies, but it does kind of update those ideas and modernize the story by adding all these cool elements of social media and things like that. Our story here follows Sam, who is a young college student that has recently been dumped by her boyfriend via video chat. To lift her spirits, Sam decides to take her friend Mark up on his offer to attend a small New Year's Eve pre-party. Once there, things seem to be going well until her friend Jed turns on the television, which displays a news story about a seemingly isolated act of violence. The assaults, however, prove not to be isolated, as the group themselves soon find themselves under attack. Through the news and social media sites, the group discover that there is a new disease that causes various different symptoms, one of which is uncontrolled violence. They board themselves up in their lodgings, and initially they believe that they will be fine until some of the friends begin to show symptoms of the disease. So this is a fun film. It's one of those things where people start turning on each other, and you can kind of see when people start to have the symptoms because they start to glitch a little bit, similar to Pontypool, where they're not acting exactly normal before this happens to them. I'd say it's, very similar to Pontypool. It's similar to a lot of films we've seen before, but it is done very well. And I can't help but think if this film was directed by like David Cronenberg or Brandon Cronenberg or somebody like that it would have made a much bigger impact. I still enjoyed it a lot, guys. Let's take a look at the trailer for Antisocial, currently playing free on Tubi.
We're throwing a kick-ass New Year's party here tonight.
So what happened with you and Dan?
We broke up. People posting comments, judging me on the social red room.
Various student suicides and physical attacks in Burbank, Washington have now been reported.
Riot in Los Angeles takes the lives of 27.
The world isn't ending, Jed. The media hypes these events.
He's infected.
I'm okay, guys, honestly.
What you were about to see is causing these hallucinations.
You have to figure out what to do. Can't stay here.
Frank, no!
If anyone is watching this, please.
How else could a virus spread worldwide in a day? What am I supposed to do, Dad?
I couldn't stop it.
Alright, horror fans, now we've made it to number 1 for this week, and I have a special pick for number 1. A lot of the films we've talked about so far, people have not heard of, or they went under the radar. This one is interesting because I still believe there's a lot of people out there who probably haven't seen it, and it's one of those movies that's so good that if you haven't seen it, just stop what you're doing right now and go watch it. We're talking about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. It's a 1986 American psychological horror crime film directed and co-written by John McNaughton. It's about the random crime spree of a serial killer who seemingly operates with impunity. It stars Michael Rooker as the nomadic killer Henry, Tom Towles as Otis, a prison buddy with whom Henry is living, and Tracy Arnold as Becky Otis's sister. The characters of Henry and Otis are loosely based on convicted real-life serial killers Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, which is interesting because there's been a lot of talk about Henry and Otis over the years, and it's to the point where, you know, these guys confessed to several hundred murders, and they really don't feel like they did probably even half of those murders. They cleared a ton of serial killer cases off of these two guys in the 80s, and now ever since then they've been going back using DNA evidence, having to resolve all these cases that the guys falsely confessed to. Just a situation where law enforcement doesn't communicate enough. I think that's a little bit different these days than it was back then, but the movie was filmed in 1985 but had difficulty finding a distributor. It premiered at the Chicago International Film Festival in 86 and played at other festivals throughout the late 80s. Following successful showings during which it attracted both controversy and positive critical attention, the film was given the Death X rating by the MPAA, further increasing its reputation for controversy, though, and actually even made the film more popular. It was subsequently picked up for a limited release in 1990 in an unrated version, and it was shot on 16mm in less than a month with a budget of around $110,000. This is a great film, guys. It's one of the best serial killer films ever made. You know, and it's sad because when I hear people list their top serial killer films, everybody says Silence of the Lambs. A lot of people say Seven, and then from there it becomes just kind of personal taste. But this is one of those films that deserves to be in that top 3, at least number 2. And I could see some people putting it ahead of Silence, but for me, Silence is number 1. This film is that good, though, that I feel like it rivals Silence of the Lambs. It's a depiction of a serial killer that we almost never see. It's just this really personal look at his life and the way his mind works, the way he interacts with people, the way he chooses victims. Is it random? Is it not random? Is it to satisfy a craving? Is it something psychological? Henry covers everything, and it's one of those films that's so shocking in some parts that it will make you want to turn away. And there aren't very many films out there that have done that to me, and I have seen the hardest of the hardest, guys. Trust me. There is still 2 scenes in Henry that makes me want to kind of look away. The other thing that absolutely has to be noted here is Michael Rooker's performance. I mean, just one of the greatest serial killer performances of all time. And I was just talking about Silence of the Lambs. You couldn't have 2 performances about serial killers that are more different and more iconic at the same time, I don't believe, because Michael Rooker is playing a different type of serial killer. You know, Anthony Hopkins is playing the highly intelligent psychopath that, you know, is pretty rare, to be honest with you, where Michael Rooker is playing the more subtle, simple-minded serial killer who is just as vicious. And it's a great performance. It's one of the most underrated, absolutely Oscar-worthy performances in horror movie history. Guys, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is free right now on Tubi. If you haven't seen it, please do me a favor, a personal favor, and watch this film. It's one of the greatest. Let's take a look at the trailer for Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Otis, plug it in.
Did you really kill your mama?
What?
Did you really kill your mama?
I guess I did.
She must have treated you real bad.
She was a whore.
Susie!
You used to dance naked?
Sure, all the time around town.
Otis,
Best little naked dancer you ever saw.
you never.
You telling me you never killed anybody before?
I ain't saying that.
Open your eyes, Otis. Look at the world. It's either you or them. You know what I mean. Don't do that, Otis. She's your sister.
I feel like I know you. Like I've known you for a long time. I feel like I've known you forever and ever.
It's like the blood droppings from a deer you've shot. And all they gotta do is follow those droppings, and pretty soon they're gonna find that deer.
I ain't interrupting it, man.
What are you doing?
I want to see it again.
Alright, horror fans, that's it for today. Now, I had a great time, and I love recommending movies to you guys. Somebody recently asked me, Jay, how do you never run out of movies to recommend? I mean, we've done about 30 of these shows, just these shows, where I recommend free horror movies to people. And that is a long, sad story about a guy who watched a lot of movies instead of hanging out with people. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the link in the description for our Patreon. If you follow the link and go to our Patreon page, and you can donate as little as $2 a month to help the channel, we will put you in our drawing April 1st. We are giving away Friday the 13th, the series, all 3 seasons, season 1, 2, and 3. We're giving that away April 1st, and then every month after that on the 1st, we'll be giving away 2 free Blu-rays. So for as little as $2 a month, you'll be entered in all those drawings, and you'll also be on our Patreon pick show once a month, where we let you choose what we talk about. Any horror topic or film you want us to cover, we will take care of it. And just as a bonus, you become a great friend to the show, and we will love you forever. All right, guys, we will talk to you the next time we've got something worth talking about. Bye.